Welcome into the show. It is Daniel Wortman coming to you live from the Dream Edge and Sports Studios. It is 9 a.m. on the East Coast. This is your 6 a.m. West Coast wake-up call in all time zones in between and around the world. Thanks for tuning in this Tuesday morning, July the 2nd, day of the semifinal between the U.S. women's national team and England. Big day, big match. USA-France was a huge number around the world and here in the U.S. I think today's match will be equally as large, possibly even larger. And that really kind of goes to the point that I want to get to here at the top of the show. The U.S. women's national team is in a fight for equal treatment from the Federation. And they have a deal that is less than fair and equal to their male counterparts. Setting aside on-field success for a moment, if we're just talking about how they're treated, it's an issue. But when you take into account the fact that you have a women's program that is the gold standard of the world, has won the World Cup 3 times, on a quest for a 4th, consistently being a powerhouse. And then you look at the men's national team, struggles to get out of the group, struggles the other night against Curacao, struggles to beat Trinidad and Tobago and even qualify for the World Cup back in 2017. When you look at the results on the field, it makes this comparison even more obvious, even more glaring, even more of an issue. There are many who think that because of the success of the U.S. women's national team that they should get paid more. I don't think they should get paid more. I think they should have the opportunity, like the men, to earn more. And by that I mean, if they had the same deal as their male counterparts, where they got bonuses for each round that they progress, and the bonuses were of the same scale, then in the end, based on their merit, the women's national team's own merit, they would earn more. So I'm not in favor of actually paying them unequally, more or less. I do believe in giving them, though, the level playing field, the equal opportunity to earn more by giving them the same treatment as the men. But then in that treatment comes the opportunity to earn more than their male counterparts in terms of how many jerseys are they selling, how many tickets are being sold at women's national team matches versus men's national team matches, how many victories are they earning in a tournament, what are those victories worth, are they the same amount as their male counterparts? If we get to that place where we have equal treatment, meaning accommodations, travel, bonuses, and the opportunities are equal, it's a level playing field, then at that point, because of the success of the women's national team and the failures and the mediocrity of the men's national team, our women's national team players would be, in fact, earning more while receiving the same opportunities as the men and getting equal treatment when it comes to their travel and their accommodations. That is the place where I think we should get to. That is a place that I think every player should want. Just give me a chance. Give me the same opportunity. And if I make something of it, let me enjoy the spoils. Let me enjoy the fruits of my labor. If I beat France and I advance, let me earn that bonus, the same bonus that my male counterparts earn. We should be setting the standard for the globe, for the entire world. For all this country was founded on, all this country is supposed to stand for all that our country is when it comes to our women's program, we should be utilizing that platform to set an example for the world, to be a light for the world, to be an example of how to treat our men's and women's programs, our players, our staffs. Our women's national team are incredible. We have the deepest roster in this World Cup. I don't know that we have just the first, but also the second best team in the world in terms of the depth of roster. I don't know that that's true. That could be hyperbole. I do know this, that no other country in the world at this World Cup has the depth of our roster. We have talent. We have really good players. My criticism so far of the women's national team, it has very little to do with our players. My critique has been about some tactics, the coaching. And I feel like we could do better. I feel like our players should get better coaching. That if they were actually working in a higher level tactical plan, I think that they would be unstoppable. They're already so good as individual players that they may win the World Cup again. But I don't feel like we're winning the World Cup because we're a team tactically. They are a close team. You can tell that these players root for each other. You can tell there's a good camaraderie, a good team spirit, and that's important in the locker room and on the bench. You can see that. You can see that in interviews. You can see that in the way that they treat each other. You can see that. It's evident. But what we also need is systematically on the field. Do they always play as a team? Or is it about individual performances? I don't think we've excelled in that area. And so if I'm a leader, I'm always trying to figure out, how can I get better? How can I take what I'm doing and make it more excellent? How can I raise the bar even higher? And that's an area where I think that we can get a lot better. That if we start to execute a tactical system in the same way that Spain is implementing a tactical system, or the Netherlands are executing a tactical system, England executing a tactical system, if we begin to execute tactically at that level, then I think we're unstoppable for a while. That to me is a potential issue for us, and it could be an issue today. We'll see. I still think that this game is much like in USA and France on Friday. If the French score first on Friday, I thought they would go on to win. If the U.S. scored early, I thought the U.S. would go on to win. And I feel that way today. I feel like if England goes on to score early, I think they can go on to win. If the U.S. scores early, I think the U.S. is going to put in a performance of effort, but it's not necessarily going to be pretty, and I think that they're going to have an opportunity to go on and win. It plays into the way that they want to play. They're probably the best front-running team in soccer today, this U.S. women's national team. They're that good dealing with expectations, getting out ahead, and staying out ahead. That is the race that they want to run. If you look at this from a racing perspective, some runners like to let the pack kind of go out and set the pace, and they just kind of wait and wait for their moment, and then they go and strike. Some runners like to get out from the beginning and lead the pack and just make you chase, and they want to wear you down, and then they pull away. And the U.S. women's national team is like that second runner. They like to get out. They like to push. They like to come at you. And when they get out ahead and they push ahead and they get a lead, they want to force you to feel the pressure, to feel the tension, to feel desperate. And then they look for the second, and then the third, and then the fourth, etc. They're very much that second runner. They're not somebody that wants to sit back and wait. They want to come at you. So when we look at how our team is going to line up today, the U.S. women's national team, my hope is that we see a Lindsey Horan in the midfield, that we see Julie Ertz either on the bench or as a center back, and that to me gives with Lavelle and Mewis and Horan, those three I think are our best midfield to keep possession and calm the game down. If we need a destroyer, if we need someone who's going to come in and try to break up play, obviously that's a role that Julie Ertz can excel at. I think against England, we're going to need to try to keep the ball in the attack. And to do that, I think Horan and Mewis and Lavelle need to be the three in the midfield. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens when the lineups come out. Only time will tell. I don't know. But in terms of our women's national team and our men's national team, equal treatment would mean that they would get better pay in the end because they would be earning more bonuses. And quite frankly, they've earned it. That should be how it works. That's what merit is. We always talk about merit in relation to promotion and relegation, but merit also plays out in the way that we handle players. And in this case, it's how we handle our men's and women's national teams. Merit should be the determining factor. What these players do today, what they've done so far, and what they will do in the future on the field should determine how much they're earning, not because they're male or female. Our sponsor this half hour is Dutt Kick Brand. They are the maker of really, really cool soccer products, including planners, notebooks. If you are a coach or a goalkeeping coach, a player, you should check them out. They have some really cool things you're not going to find anywhere else. DuttKickBrand.com, DUTKIG brand.com. Use promo code DWShow. You will get 10% off your order. Again, that is DWShow. You'll get 10% off your order at DuttKickBrand.com. We'll be right back after this with Sarah Loudon. Welcome back to the show. Thanks for tuning in this Tuesday morning, July the 2nd, the day of a big semifinal tonight between England and the U.S., and we are pleased to be joined by Sarah Loudon. She is the equipment manager at the University of Florida. Sarah, welcome to the show, and thanks for coming on this morning.
Daniel, thanks for having us.
So give us a little bit of your background in history. Like, you know, obviously growing up in the UK, football's all around. At what point did that grab a hold of you and you decide, hey, I want to stay in the game, stay involved in the game, going forward, not just something I'm going to play here or there, that I want to make it a big part of my life?
Well, I grew up in Newcastle, England. If you think about Newcastle, it's known for its beer, it's night and it's football. So basically reared or dragged around the game of football. St. James Park, where Newcastle United play, was our church as kids. So for me, it was just a natural progression to, after I finished playing, to go into coaching. So I feel like I didn't have a choice. And to be honest, I really don't know what I would be doing right now if I wasn't coaching.
We saw recent news, Rafa Benitez leaving Newcastle. As someone who grew up in Newcastle, was Newcastle United like your club? Is that the club you support?
Yeah, the club chose me. When you're from Newcastle, the club chooses you. And I'm a diehard Newcastle fan. When I go home at Christmas, I go to all the games that are the home games that I can get to. This year, I went to Fulham, Wolves, and Manchester United. All the games that I can. I remember as a kid, this game was an FA Cup replay against Stevenage back in 1997, and I remember Shearer scored the tying goal, and my uncle picked me up. Behind the goal, I took my shoe off, just among the chaos of all the Geordies stuff. So that's my earliest memory of football, and it's stuck with us ever since.
So it grabs a hold of you. It's part of the fabric of who you are and what what you want to do. The passion that's inside of you. How did you get from there? Tell us about your story of going from growing up in Newcastle, growing up a Newcastle United supporter, and now you are the equipment manager at the University of Florida. Give us the kind of the connection of dots between Newcastle and where you are today with the University of Florida.
Okay, so I'll give you the snapshot. So grew in Newcastle, like I said, and then I came over to America on a scholarship when I was 18. That was, at the time, it was really hard to get. YouTube was just kind of putting yourself on YouTube was kind of not a. It was kind of sending DVDs out to universities. So I worked at a shoe shop. I worked in retail from the age 15, and I worked around 20 an hour, which is. So I did that, and then I basically would send my DVDs over to US of me playing, and I ended up getting over to Mississippi University, which is obviously in the SEC where Florida is right now. Didn't really work out. I wasn't really, just my speed of play, I wasn't good enough at that level at that time. So I transferred to a smaller Division I school in Lake Charles, Louisiana. Good fit for me, small Division I school. So I got the best of both worlds. I got a big Division I school and I got a small Division I school, which I think in the long term has helped me as a coach as I recruit. Then basically after that, I got my first job in Clinton at a school in West Texas. And if you know anything about being international, it's really, really hard to stay in this country. So the only school that I would really have it, to be honest. Took that job, flew myself out to view, paid for it out of my own pocket. Got the job, stayed there for months, did a little bit of teaching while I was there. And then I gave that up and went to work with the Houston Dash as a volunteer. So that was the first sacrifice I kind of made early in my career. And it was fortunate because at the time, 2015, the women's national team had won the World Cup, and the player that scored the hat-trick in the World Cup, Carly Lloyd, in the final, she played for Houston. So I might be around Houston at a really great time, and I managed to take all that in and work with some toppers. After that, I got a job at Sam Houston University, which is a Division I school in Texas. I was there for 2 years. Had a great time, learned a lot. While doing that, was also balancing with the dash, and kind of felt like I had learned everything that I could learn from both programs, and kind of felt as though I was getting a little bit stale. So I followed in Florida for a long time. Florida was a dream school for me, and again, I knew I wasn't good enough to play there. But I followed Becky Burley, who's the head coach there, and I managed to get to an event that she went, and I basically just asked, hey, I would love to, working in a cafeteria as a janitor and volunteering with a team. I'll do anything, and kind of laugh about it now. I was really willing to do that, and what I wanted to get in was to be an equipment manager. So that's what I'm doing. I manage all the equipment, and I'm learning from some of the best coaches in the nation, and I've been there for 2 years.
So before we go on, I want to first off, in today's age of instant success and I gotta have it now, commend you on your hustle. I don't know if you follow Gary Vaynerchuk at all, who's a business author, business owner, entrepreneur. But he's always talking about the hustle and being willing to make the sacrifices. And you've obviously been willing to do that, and to chase a dream, to get better, to educate yourself and chase opportunities. And so first off, I commend you for that. I had in multiple times in my life those experiences. I remember coming out of college, I wanted to work at a recording studio, and this is back around the time where recording studios at that time were still a viable business unto themselves. You couldn't just go and record an album in your bedroom like you can today. The technology just wasn't there, and so I really wanted that, and I did like you. I chose a hustle path that was my only way in the door, and it paid off, and it's opened up so many doors since. And so I understand the path that you're on there, and so I don't want to gloss over that. I think for a lot of players, a lot of coaches, a lot of families, we want things handed to us without a lot of friction, without a lot of hustle. And sometimes to get what we really, really want, we've got to be willing to make a sacrifice and to hustle and be willing to stretch ourselves in order to chase our dreams. And so I think that's really cool that you have done that and have done that on multiple occasions yourself. In your journey towards, becoming a better coach and wanting to get into coaching, what are your long-term aspirations? What are you ultimately trying to do, and why is learning at the University of Florida a big part of that idea?
Well, first of all, I think if you start on football, you get left behind. So for me, my long goals, I would always have these long-term goals set. And as I've got older, I've realized path is not, the path that I've deviated on completely different from what I would have acted 9-10 years ago. And I've dedicated my entire 20s to the craft. If I could say what I would like, I eventually would like to manage my own program one day. I don't know whether that would be in the US or in a different country, but I would like to be a head coach one day. I'm really sure I'm taking it day by day. Right now, I enjoy the role that I'm in, funny enough, the role where you serve others, and I really enjoy that. And I think that's not only made me a better coach, it's made me a better person. And that's what University of Florida Women's Soccer stands for. That's what our culture is. It's person over play and developing people into well-rounded persons.
Speaking of the University of Florida, what about that program has set it up to be such a high standard and have so much success compared to others in college soccer? Oh,
there's so many things I could talk about. I think, again, just touching on the person over player approach, that's players reaching their potential. And Becky does a great job at allowing people to be themselves within the program, and that's not just players, that's staff as well. I think it's a relational environment, so she's a transformational coach, and all the coaches there are, with Alan Vick too. And the staff has been there together for, I think Alan's been there, might be entering his 16th year, and then Becky and Vic have been together for, this will be their 24th year, 25th year maybe even. And they've just evolved as the program has gone on. I've been there 2 years, and every year is different. No year is the same, and they adapt to the players and the generations that are through. For example, this year or this spring, we did something where our team struggled last season. We had a rough year. It was the first losing season in program history. We never lost the locker room, and that says a lot about our culture, right? When we lose and when we win, keep our culture, and just different things. Like our players were struggling with conflict, so we would do a little program called Tell the Truth Today, where players and staff would have to meet, and you'd have to give some hard truth and have some conversations. And then on Wednesdays, we would do Real World Wednesdays, where the players, we would not train, and we would basically have a practical environment. Player would learn how to change a scooter tire, because all our players drive mopeds. Or we would have how to change oil in your car, or a mental health, or how to clean, just little life skills that players can take or use while they're in college.
So learning at a program like that is aspiring for excellence, aspiring for greatness. How does that affect the staff and the players when there is that level of expectation and desire in terms of aspiring for excellence? Well,
it's effective. I think it's pressure, especially when you're Florida and you've won. They've won for years and years. I think there does come an expectation from previous groups and players that play for that program. But I think Becky and staff do a good job at managing those expectations. For example, everyone's opinion matters on our team. So if you're player number 1 on the roster, player number 25, there's a fight there against groupthink. And she makes sure that everybody else is heard. But I think that comes back to the staff. Those expectations are managed. And like I said, last year we had a good season, but we never lost our locker room. We did a great job at making sure that everybody stayed safe. And that's our environment. We have different little pieces. For example, we have no BCD, which is no blaming, complaining, or defending. So that's something we don't allow in our program. So just little things like that.
Now, your search or your quest for education and getting better and learning the game and studying the game and becoming a practitioner and clinician with the game and really getting a grasp on the game itself. In terms of a philosophy, have you been able to shape a personal philosophy that you like in terms of the way that you want to play, in a philosophy of how you want it to develop a team on the field as well as off the field?
I think so. I think I just got back from the USSA license, and that's part of one of our assignments actually. I don't know if I've fully came up with what that playing philosophy or coaching philosophy is. I think it's always constantly evolving and adapting. I think I have things on paper that I like, things in Florida that I definitely want to take with me, and also things that I would probably change. But I think, the biggest thing for me in my core statement, I think, would just be to empower and inspire the next generation. For me, especially especially now with females. And just promoting things, personal growth and embracing uniqueness. And again, I would like to take on the coaching of the person rather than the player, and hopefully develop the future of champions just by using soccer as a platform. Really, just to graduate well-read citizens are going to go on to be productive. Like I said, I think the biggest thing for me is the person is who you are, and the player is just a part of who you are, and separate identity and trying to explain that to athletes.
So in your travels back and forth, and your learning the game and hustling to get that education, get that experience to find ways to gain experience and help you for the future. At the same time, it's been not just a personal thing where you're going and you're trying to pick that up. You have a marriage, you're apart, and you're having to manage that as well. What kind of effect has that had on your ability to chase your dreams and be able to kind of do the going back and forth and chase that experience that you crave?
In the beginning when I moved to Florida, it was really difficult. I had a really hard time adjusting. But with anything, like, I knew it took time, and who worried me was going to have to follow me there. We always joke about that. No, it is difficult, especially when you get older as well, because I'm nearly 50, and I would like to settle down and eventually be in one place and not be driving 11 hours across I-10 every couple of months. Feel like I'm in the car more than I'm actually anywhere else. But I think I think I'm just used to it. I don't know different. It's just the way I am, and it's ingrained in me, and I can't sit still for very long. So I've seen opportunities where if I wasn't happy, there's opportunities for me to always come back. My family always tell me that too. Like, I can always go back to England. I can always go back to being in one spot and being settled down. But is that really I want it right now? And I think eventually I will want that. But right now I'm kind of chasing the dream, like you said, and just trying to where it takes me while I'm young.
So is your husband from the U.S. or is he from England? Any other place? Where is he from?
American, yes.
So how does he feel about spending some time over in Europe?
We've done a few trips over Europe. It's always fun to get to spend time with. Especially the time with my family. Family actually always come over here as well every summer. So we get the best of both worlds, where we get an American holiday and an English holiday. So that's always fun.
Speaking of England and America, and talking about your husband and your family, we have a big match today. England versus the U.S. I want to get into this game, and I want to talk about all kinds of aspects of this, but I first want to talk about some macro aspects of English women's soccer and American women's soccer. On the England side of the ledger, what have you seen in the last few years in terms of progress and growth in the women's game in England?
Well, I think we're seeing more clubs into the game. We've got Manchester City, which is force. You've got Liverpool, you've got Chelsea, you've got Arsenal, who've been around for a while. So just the investment into the game. Manchester United, so you've just got a team. If you look into Europe, you've just seen that Real Madrid are just starting a team in 2020. So just that teams are now starting to invest in the women's game is a big thing. I think that the women did so well in the last World Cup. They made the semi. I'm talking about England, obviously, and I know that really now it is an expectation. So just the fact that the whole of England, the England team is talking about how they're in this bubble. France, I'm kind of following them on Twitter, and they're talking about how they're in a bubble, and they don't realize the influence that they're having on the country. And it's crazy how much grown over the last few years, where England are, the whole of England is rooting Alan Shearer, also just for some of the players, and Beckham's over there, and Ian Wright, everyone's into it. The more that we can promote on social media, the better.
So comparing that to your experiences, you come over to the U.S. for college, and you've stuck around, and you have been in and around the women's professional game, some of these women's national team players, your work now at Florida. What have you experienced and learned from the U.S. women's national team in the program and the game, the women's game here in America?
Well, I just think college game is what helps America. I think, you got these top facilities, like where I am right now at the university, the resources that we have, the resources that other programs have. And, we don't have that in England, obviously, but I think that's something that sets the US apart, is you get 4 years to basically study for a degree and 4 years to play at a very high level. So, my time in Houston was also a great experience for me. Probably didn't deserve to be on the field with, those types of players at 25 years old. Again, whatever it took to pick up cones and be around those types of players and coaches, I was ready to do it.
So looking at today's match, big match, semifinal, England, U.S., where have England been at their strongest? What part of the game have they really excelled at that you've seen so far?
Well, you just look at Ellen White and look at how in form she is. She just scores. Every time she gets the ball, she looks like she's going to score. So just the fact that ruthless England are in the final third.
In terms of weaknesses or potential issues that you see for this English side, what would they be, and what concerns would you have with them facing up against this U.S. women's national team?
Honestly, I think England are really hard to break down. So I think the thing for England is that now, I was just talking to somebody about this morning, like England are due a big win, and they will win over the US if you look at all the previous results. So I don't really think England are I don't know, like it's a difficult question. I think that I'm really intrigued to watch the matchup between Lucy Bronze and Megan Rapinoe, because obviously Lucy, she's a right back, but she occupies the right side field. And I'm interested to see, because obviously she likes to get forward, I'm interested to see her matchup against Rapinoe, because Rapinoe obviously didn't necessarily always come back to defend. So it should be a little bit of an instant cat and mouse game between those two. And I'm just interested in the other 1v1 matchups, maybe against Nikki Harris if she starts against Crystal Dunn. But I think it might be on the 1v1 battles.
The English team has been steadily growing and rising in stature, popularity there in England, obviously quality on the field as well. And in terms of success, is this good enough if they go out today against the U.S. women's national team? Is the country going to be satisfied that was good enough, or is the country expecting more from this English side in this World Cup?
Well, I think England will be disappointed if they don't make it to the final. I think that's pretty clear. I mean, I think Phil Neville has already stated in his interviews that nothing's good enough unless you make it to the World Cup final, and I think the country will be proud of them. I mean, at the end of the day, like, they went there and they've done everybody proud. I don't think it'll ever be a disappointment to the country, but I think for the England camp, I think it would be a disappointment. But, it's a tough one for me because a lot of those England players actually are from the east of England. So I'm for them for sure. And then for me, obviously, I make my living in the US. So, and I've worked with a few of those players on that side. So for me, it's lose or a win-win. You can look at it, but I'm really hoping for a good game and hoping the best team wins.
Speaking of the U.S. side of the ledger, obviously they've been getting the results, and not always, in my view, fantastic fashion, but they've been getting the results, which in a tournament, and especially now in the knockout phases of the tournament, that's what matters more than anything. What have you seen the U.S. do well so far in this World Cup as you've watched some of their matches?
Well, if they're front three, they're probably the best in the world. And then, the depth in their squad is the first thing for the US. They got so much depth. I mean, you look at those that come off the bench for them. I mean, you're bringing on Lindsay Horan, which is insane, I think it goes back to the depth. And they expect to win. That's the thing with the US, and that's the thing I think England are trying to get to that where, there's always a target on your back.
In terms of weak spots or areas that you think that Phil Neville and his coaching staff will look to exploit, have you seen anything that stood out to you that if you were the coach of the English side that you would be going, okay, hey, we want to go at the U.S. women's national team in this area of the field, or this player, or we feel like this is a good matchup for us, or a good spot on the field for us, etc. Have you identified or seen anything from the U.S. side that would be a place that you would look to exploit if you were Phil Neville and his staff?
Well, I think I would say that I would have had to go with their first, but after watching Crystal Dunn against Johanny, I don't know if that's really, a weakness of it's because Crystal Dunn had one of the games of her life. But for me, I think, again, it's going to go back to that matchup with Ellen White and between the two sacks. And, their goalkeeper, she's not Hope Solo. So, that's kind of stuff for the US as well, I think. So for me, it would just be, when you get it, can you have a go? See what happens.
Well, if you don't see what happens and you don't have a go, you're never going to find out, right? So
exactly. I mean, I think we're seeing more and more teams, go after the US and not just sitting back London and breaking on the counter attack. So I'll be interested to see how Phil Neville ends up, whether they go for it or whether they sit back. And I'm assuming they're going to go for it.
So
fancy their chances again.
Right. So these two teams faced off in I believe it was a 2-2 draw in the She Believes Cup a little while back. Do you think that there were any lessons learned, or is this just kind of throw that game out? This is a whole new animal. What do you think from that match to this one in terms of lessons learned for both sides?
Well, I think in that game, if you remember, their centre-back Steph Houghton scored free kick inside their box. So, I mean, I think they played really well in that game. I think the biggest thing for England that they're going to have their key players for me, Steph Houghton, Lucy Bronze. I think Steph is, she's an experienced team leader. She's physically and mentally strong. She likes the long ball over the top, and she's accurate with that. But England can also build out. She's a no-nonsense defender. And then, again, going back to Lucy Bronze, I think she's versatile, she's physical, she has aerial ability, and she's arguably one of the best defenders in the world. And like I said, she doesn't just protect, she occupies the right flank. So, again, for the US, I think they'll probably be disappointed tied because they lost the Sheep, and anything for the US but a win is not right. So, I think the US will be paying for blood, and I think England will fancy their chances against them just because of previous results. Like I said, I think they're due a win over the US.
When I was looking at this USA-France quarterfinal and kind of seeing which way this thing might go, I kept talking to people and they kept saying, I give France the edge in that match. The one caveat I had for that match was that I felt if the U.S. scored in the first, say 10, 15 minutes of the match, that would not bode well for France. For whatever reason, I just felt like it would allow the U.S. to not have to feel any pressure, and therefore, what I have seen as kind of a lack of ability at times to kind of just stay calm and keep possession. It's been very much kind of a heavy metal style of attacking football. It's like get the ball and go. And I felt like they were able to kind of sit back on France and absorb some pressure for most of that match. And France, just seemed a little bit rattled after that early, what I thought was a self-inflicted mistake in the way that they set up the wall and defended that free kick that Rapinoe converted for the 1-0 lead on the Friday match, quarterfinal between France and the U.S. When you look at this match today with England and the U.S., do you feel like England would get rattled if the U.S. scored in the first 10 to 15 minutes? Do you think it's as equally important, or do you think that they will be prepared to handle that kind of adversity if the U.S. is able to get an early goal?
I think they'll be able at all. I think they'll. I think it's going to spark probably a bit of spark them to play. Even more. At the end of the day, you're in a World Cup semi-final. It's you win or you bust. So I think they're under Phil Neville. Obviously, I don't really know how Phil Neville coaches, but what I've read and what I've heard, I think they'll be very. He'll put them in situations where they're dealing with the US. What I'm interested in is if the US go down, because I don't think have they been down this since, and have they come back to win? I'm not really sure. I don't really know if they're used to it. So I'm in this tournament. So I'm interested to see if the US goes down to flip that and see how they react.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. So far this World Cup, they've either been level or ahead. They've not trailed in any of these matches, and so I would be curious to see how they handle going down to England and have to chase the game. And are they ready for that? The one thing I see in this U.S. team is they are probably the best front-running team I have seen in a while, men or women. They are really, really good at being the bully, and I don't mean that in a disparaging way at all. I mean, like, they play that part of front runner. I'm the big personality here, the big man on campus, the big dog, whatever kind of descriptive phrase you want to use for being the top person or top of the heap or whatever. Looking at this U.S. women's national team, they handle that part, which is very difficult to do. To be the one that everyone is coming for, and you continually are rising to that challenge and being a great front runner. On the flip side, I am curious if they have to chase a game, what that does to this U.S. team. In terms of, are they able to get on the ball and keep it long enough without conceding possession, which to me I've seen too often in this World Cup from them, where they could have made their own lives a lot easier if they would have kept better possession of the ball. And so I would be curious to see how that plays out today if England are able to get up a goal, early on, to see how the U.S. handles it.
Especially if it's, like you said, if it's an early goal or to see what the tactics be, if it's an early goal or what change, or whether it's a late goal, how they would adjust. Like you said, I think it'd be really interesting. But again, I'm sure Jill Ellis has recreated those moments in practice where they are down goals and they have to crack in. They have certain time or whatever those situations that occur in practice. I'm sure they're ready for that.
What are you looking? You know some of these players on the U.S. women's national team, and you've been around them. What makes their mental makeup so strong that they are able to handle that pressure and rise to the challenge so consistently, especially compared to their counterparts throughout women's soccer? Well,
they're just the team. They're just so confident in their abilities. And I think as well, like when you have a target on your back, used to that pressure. They're used to always being under the spotlight and always face the scrutiny. And I was around, a few of the players, like you said, and just the dressing room presence that they have too. Just some of those players that are fortunate to be around, just the presence that they have in the locker room, the presence they have in the field. It's just, again, it's the American way, isn't it?
It is at times, for sure, and in this case, definitely so. I think that the team, the collection of talent in these players are they're just top notch, and I don't know that you can find a deeper roster. And it seems that competition within the squad is just, making all of their individual performances even better. and it's tough to come up against, and I think that's what we saw with France in the quarterfinal this past Friday, and it would be interesting to see how England handles it today in the semifinal. That collection of names coming at you, and that is their MO. That's what this U.S. women's national team wants to do, is they want to come at you and keep coming at you as much as possible. We saw it with Thailand, which was a completely inferior opponent, and the U.S. were the exact opposite. I mean, you couldn't have picked a worse pairing for the World Cup in terms of a team that has all of the strengths in this column and the weaknesses of a team in the other column to match up against. And the U.S. just were relentless and in that pursuit of goals and that's just part of their DNA and how they're made up. How they want to keep coming at you. They want to keep pressing for the next goal, and try to beat you down, I guess, in a way, not in a bad sportsmanship way, but just in a way where they're never satisfied. They want to keep coming, and I'm curious to see how England handles that pressure from them, and vice versa. If England's able to get a goal, especially early on, how these U.S. women's national team players handle that adversity in today's match as well. It will be fascinating to see. So I'm going to put you on the spot before we move on.
Oh.
Prediction time. Your husband's American. You're English. You work in America. You grew up in England. What's your prediction for the game today, England versus the U.S. in this semifinal?
Well, I've got to go with England, haven't I? I've got to go with my heart. I've got to go with England. I think they're due a big win. I'm going to say, do you want me to give you the scoreline?
Yeah, give me a score.
Ooh, England 2-1. What's your prediction?
My prediction... I'm going to make the same prediction I made against France. I think England wins if they score first. If the U.S. scores first, I think the U.S. wins. And the main reason why I think that against this team, this U.S. team, is just the way that they're made up. If they get that first, I think it allows them to cover up their weakness. And their weakness is, for me, the way I see it, is organization in terms of positional play to keep possession. There's too often with this amount of talent that they are ceding possession carelessly to me in what I see. And so I think that when they get to score early, like when they scored against France, they could sit back more and absorb and not even have to be concerned with keeping the ball. They could play counterattack and when they get the ball, just go quick. And they really enjoy that part of the game. And you can tell that they love that part of the game. Get the ball out to Alex Morgan or Rapinoe or Heath and let's go attack. If England scores first, then I think that's going to draw them out, make them chase the game more, and then I think in that context, I think the U.S. is vulnerable in the back if they have to come out and they have to be the ones that have to stay on the front foot, not because of like the Thailand game where they could just kind of do whatever they wanted, but because they're having to chase the game. And I think that they're going to expose themselves, and part of that's going to depend too on the lineup that we see today. I'm a big fan of Lindsey Horan in the midfield, and if she's on the bench to start this match and England scores early, I think that could be major trouble for the U.S. because Lindsey Horan in that midfield settles the game down. for me. Much better than Julie Ertz at a 6. Julie Ertz is great at breaking up play, being a destroyer, kind of working her way around the field, and a lot of energy there. I just like the composure of Lindsey Horan, and we even saw that when she came in against France. Instantly, the midfield started to kind of settle down. They actually got on the ball a little bit there in the second half with her on the field, and so the lineups that we see later today, coupled with if England scores first, I think could be the determination of who wins. And it's not to say that neither team can come back from being a goal down. I think they're both equipped to do that. I think psychology and just the way these two teams play, I think if England scores first, they win. If the U.S. is able to score first, then I think they're going to go on to win. And that's kind of earlier on in the game or late in the game kind of thing. If we're looking at extra time or penalties, it's a coin toss for me. I have no idea what's going to happen, and it wouldn't shock me at all if we saw extra time either. If it was a 0-0 or 1-1 and goes to extra time, and then we see where it goes from there. So it'll be interesting to see, and obviously the world will be watching. And I know all of England will be watching. I want to ask you kind of a quick shift away from today's match. What do you think about Europe using this women's national team tournament to decide who goes to play in the Olympics?
Daniel, you couldn't.
Okay, so I was asking, what do you think of Europe using this tournament to decide which countries get to go play in the Olympics?
Yeah, I saw that. Obviously, I think they were talking about how much of a time it is. It kind of sucks for France and Germany. It's going to suck to have them in the Olympics. I understand there's no time, but I was trying to read up on whether there's another way to do it, because it just makes the World Cup that much more important, right? The World Cup's obviously, the most important competition of a footballer's career, but, to qualify the Olympics, that's tough that you're not in the Olympics, because now I think those teams don't get to qualify for anything until 2021 time.
Yeah, they're sitting for a little while, and it was so harsh. That French team is so good. The German program has been, a giant as well in the women's game, and to see that both of those teams are not going to have any opportunity to qualify or earn their way into the Olympics other than this World Cup, the way things played out, it was just unfortunate to me, and I don't know what they can do to change it with scheduling and such, but I definitely thought it was unfortunate. My final question for you is this: you have seen and obviously lived the game in England, and you've seen and lived the game here in America. If you were in charge of American soccer for a day, and you could do anything with your day in charge, what would you do to improve American soccer?
How long we got? I think the whole the club has got to change. I don't know what that is. Obviously, I've been a little bit removed from it with my role at there. But just you see now in the DA, it's a little bit watered down now. So I would probably look into changing that, to be honest. And I will say that I have just taken a US course, and over the last 6 months, and it was brilliant. Caught the course at all, really, really learnt a lot. And my path to the US from the E license to the A license, it's been a long journey, but I don't think I'd be the coach up today without that coaching pathway that I've had.
Fantastic. Well, look, Sarah, thanks for coming on the show. I know that all eyes will be on this semifinal later today, and then obviously we have the Sweden-Netherlands match tomorrow. Who do you think wins in that one?
Netherlands for me.
Yeah, me too. I like the way they play. I've really enjoyed watching them in this tournament. Well, look, Sarah, thanks for coming on the show. We really do appreciate you spending some time with us, and coming on the show. And we look forward to having you back on again in the future.
Thanks for having me, Daniel. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. That is Sarah Loudon. She is the equipment manager with the University of Florida, and really appreciate her spending some time with us and sharing her insights into the game, her experiences in the game. And the one lesson, I think above all lessons in listening to her talk, is about pursuing and hustling and chasing your dreams, chasing your passions. If you want something in life, it's something that matters, something that you really, really desire. It's similar to a phrase I tell my kids all the time: dream big, but be willing to work harder. And her pathway is a testament to that, and we can all learn from that. Our sponsor this half hour is Charity Water. You can learn more about Charity Water by going to charitywater.org. They dream big dreams, and they work really hard around the world to provide clean drinking water to people all over the world, and you can be a part of that story at charitywater.org. We'll be right back after this.
No one, no man, no woman, no child should ever have to drink green water with bugs, with algae, with disease in it. Bad water and a lack of toilets kills more people than all the wars in the world. We know how to bring clean drinking water right now to every single person on earth. And when you can bring water into communities, it truly transforms them. It changes everything. Or you could know that you'd made a difference. You could know that you had truly impacted the life of a family, of a community, of a region. There was either clean water or there wasn't. We believe in a world where every single person has clean and safe water to drink, and we will continue fighting until that happens.